Good morning and welcome to Valencia in eastern Spain. Ready for the final day of testing here in Valencia as we start to prepare for 2020, just days after the MotoGP World Championship came to a close for 2019. Steve Day, Matt Burt and Simon Crathar are here with you for the next 7 hours to bring you the second day of testing. We'll have an hour's break for lunch at 2 o'clock local time. As you can see, another bright morning here in Valencia, and this is how it ended yesterday, Matt, with Fabio Quartararo, as he did so often in 2019, fastest overall.
Yeah, a best lap of 1:31.63 from the Frenchman. It wasn't without his dramas. A big crash for Quartararo late on yesterday at turn 10. It was an all-Yamaha top three with Vinales and Morbidelli inside those top three spots. Andrea Dovizioso on a new Ducati chassis fourth. Marc Marquez took a big tumble at turn 13 on the brand new 2020 Honda. He was spit out of Duanmir. Alex Rins, the two Suzuki men evaluating a new engine. Paul Espargaro on a heavily revised KTM chassis was 8th, with Valentino Rossi and Jack Miller 10th. Cal Crutchlow 11th. Below Petrucci, will we see him out in action today? He only did 10 laps with tendinitis in his left shoulder, causing him some problems. Great performance by the rookie Yika Lecuona in 13th place. Alex Marquez was down in 23rd, of course, on just his 8th lap on a factory Honda. He crashed heavily at turn 10 in those cool temperatures early yesterday morning. Brad Binder also, of course, first time we've seen him in MotoGP action on the KTM. He was in 21st place. Sunday's Moto2 winner here in Valencia.
We're going to get some highlights up for you in a moment, showing you some of the action from yesterday, if you missed it. Of course, as Matt just mentioned, a couple of crashes for a number of riders. This was the moment then Alex Marquez set out, not for the first time, of course, on MotoGP machinery. Of course, as you can see there, the media surrounding the Honda. He's out there with LCR for the 2 days of testing, but unfortunately, Matt, it was a short-lived experience.
Yeah, it was very sunny, looked very warm here yesterday morning in Valencia, but it was not. It was quite cool, as you'd expect, as we approach December here in Spain. Alex Marquez then, he went out for the initial first 7 laps, was building up his pace and rhythm quite comfortably, actually, and then he was caught out by the classic cold front tyre crash at turn number 10. We'll see that, I'm sure, very, very shortly. This was Alex Marquez starting his MotoGP career, and this is when it all went horribly wrong very, very early on. He said it was the cold right-hand side of that front tyre, turns 4 and turns 10. How many riders have been caught out by that? He said it was a rookie mistake, but he's not the only man that's done that. We saw crashes later on at the very same corner for Honda test rider Stefan Bradl on the 2020 Honda, and also, of course, for Fabio Quartararo. He was very frustrated, very angry with himself. Those pictures tell it all, don't they, for Alex Marquez. He was quite upset that he made such an early mistake, but easy to do in those conditions.
No such drama for Brad Binder, of course, who ended the season in spectacular fashion in Moto2, kissing goodbye to KTM's Moto2 era with 3 wins at the end of the season. He went out on the factory KTM, did not put any soft tyres in to post a fast, stunning lap, if you like, but he was very steady indeed. A 32.645 for Brad Binder as he went out on circuit. Luckily for him, he stayed upright all day and didn't look too badly at all. He was in the mid 132s. I expect we'll see a little bit more of Brad trying to just push the boat a bit. Of course, he spent all of yesterday as well on a 2019 KTM, but it was confirmed, as you would imagine, he will get a look out on the 2020 machine.
And this was the second crash of the day for the Marquez brothers. A big one for world champion Marc Marquez, that high side at turn 13 on the brand new 2020 RC213V, which, as you can see, just off your shot there, was completely destroyed. That was a wrecked motorcycle. Not a lot of spare parts around for those 2020 bikes. Cal Crutchlow has one, Stefan Bradl has one, and Marc Marquez had one, but Marquez's 2020 laps were curtailed by that big crash at turn 13, which he found quite difficult to explain. Strange crash is what he said, although he did say there was no technical malfunction with that new bike.
Carrying on with the highlights of day one, of course, so often this year, Fabio Quartararo stole the headlines when he could from Marc Marquez, and yesterday was no different. He went out with brand new soft rubber in and posted some brilliant times, a couple of low 1:30 30.1s, and he was just looking like he was about to go sub 1:30, and then he went into turn 10, the same corner as where Alex Marquez crashed. He then lost the front as well. Simon, let's just pop down to you then. I believe you've got Carol Abraham with you.
I have. I saw Carol. I was lucky enough to see the garage door open, and he's been good enough to talk to us. Carol, really curious about all these rumours involving your team, you and Zarco. Can you tell us what you know from your side?
Well, the rumors, I know probably the same as you. I know about John, and I'm pretty sure he did talk to our team, because with Repsol Honda not giving him a place for next season, he's definitely looking for a place, but I haven't seen him around, not even his manager. But I'm pretty sure they did talk to our team. Although I do have a contract for next year, which is valid. It is true that we would like to do some adjustment. Me and also the team would like to do some adjustments to the contract. So we are still talking, and hopefully we'll find find a way and solution to keep it up. But as I said, at the moment we do have a contract and it's valid, and the team agrees on that. We agreed on that. So as long as it goes, we are now testing our 2019 GP19 bike, and we are getting ready for next season.
So, from what I understand, if you and your team both agree, well, for example, if one of you disagrees, is there still a chance that Zarco can come in, or you both have to disagree on the contract adjustment?
Well, look, there is always a chance for everything, right? There is always a place for, well, anything can happen, right? So, of course, if all of our adjustments, the team refuses, and we refuse all the adjustments of the team, and then we start to fight and angry on each other, this is definitely a possibility, but I don't see it happening, because the team has been very friendly, the management and everything. So I don't think this could happen. But of course, there is a chance. There's always a chance. There is, I think, even a chance in another teams, that something will happen, and then Zarco can come and replace whoever the rider is. So we'll see.
Carol, thanks for talking to us, and best of luck to today. Since you haven't got your leathers on, it looks like you're not going out straight away. Do you mind giving us a bit of a insight on what testing is like here? Like their first hour or so, I was nervous for you guys yesterday morning.
Man, obviously I don't have my leathers on. It's 7 degrees out there. I'm not going out there right now. For the moment, when we get out, I think already yesterday we pretty much matched our best lap time here in Valencia. So when we get out there, we want to try things. We want to try setup. We want to go fast. Soft tires, do it. Commit. And in this conditions, it is not possible, or it is possible, but then people start crashing, especially in those right-handers, turn number 4 and turn 10 or whatever it is, 10, 11, where people crash very often, and it's a high-speed corner too. So we rather wait a little bit, and when track temperature goes up, and we will be capable of making good lap times, then I'll put my leathers on and we'll get out there.
Okay, I have one last question for you. I was feeling a little bit sorry for the rookies because of that track temperature, but also because of Valencia, with the lower gearing and short straights, tight turns. It must be a handful to tame your first go on a MotoGP bike.
Well, for sure, especially as you mentioned, for the rookies, everything is new, and when you get out there, okay, for the first exit probably doesn't matter too much. Like, we went out there yesterday quite early as well, because we need to do the shakedown, just see if everything is working, electronics and blah blah blah, all the things. But when you really want to work, when you really want to get fast, it's better if everything is good. So I know in the past when it rained, they didn't go out at all, especially the rookies, because the bike is very powerful, brakes are different, tires are different, team is usually different, electronics, it's just so many new things that is really better that you get out there when everything is perfect.
Carol, I'm going to let you go, I promise, in a moment. Just something else I've thought of is something came up yesterday about electronics. You would have ridden bikes without electronics a few years ago, and then obviously now you ride with a lot of electronics on the bike. It's obviously safer to have them, and because I remember in my day, guys got hurt regularly, high siding off, and we don't see that very often anymore. But there's always possibility of technical glitches. We saw what I think was a glitch for Paulo Espargaro in qualifying, and he came in pretty angry. It looked like traction control wasn't working. And is that a scary thing to happen, I imagine? Has it happened to you, where you go out and you expect it to work and it doesn't?
Well, every now and then it does happen, and you know the problem is that nowadays you really rely on the electronics pretty much. So when you're out there, you open the throttle, you know, as hard as you can, and the rear is going sideways and everything. And if something goes wrong, it can send you up, you know, in the air real quick. But fortunately, it doesn't happen very often. It happens once in everyone's career, you know. But yeah, I am not a big fan of electronics. You do go a lot faster with it than without it, but I think it would be a lot nicer, you know, if it was back in your wrist and your mind control, you know, to open it. And it would be even good for me because I think I always have been pretty good in the throttle control. But nowadays, the electronics take over a lot, so we got to work with what we've got. And it looks like the electronics can go a lot faster than, you know, your twisting of the wrist.
Carol, always great to speak to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks to Simon, thanks to Carol Abraham. You're just looking here at some replays from yesterday of Alex Rins, who's just been having a bit of fun with his team. Interesting comments there from Carol Abraham. Clever cookie as always, Carol, and being quite realistic about some of the rumours that are going around regarding Johann Zarco. Yesterday, once more, Matt, even whilst we were on air and into the evening, rumours hotting up once more about Johann Zarco. We heard from Ruben Chaus yesterday, and he kind of alluded to the fact that there's a possibility of Zarco coming in. It looks like Paolo Ciabatti pretty much said himself when you spoke to him that, you know, the option is there if he wants it. So it's an interesting situation, isn't it? I mean, either way, it sounds as if there's going to be some even stronger negotiations going on about Zarco coming into Reale Avintia. And we should just point out the reason why Simon's spoken to Carol Abraham about it is because if Zarco was to come in, Abraham looks the most likely to depart.
That's the case, yeah. I mean, clearly on Monday morning here in Valencia, Johann Zarco had quite a long sit-down with senior Ducati management, including Gigi Dall'Igna, where he was made proposals or given assurances about the level of technical support, about how many Ducati engineers would be moved into Reale Avintia. Ducati out there classed as a satellite team or an independent team, being brought much closer under the wing of the Bologna project. A lot of people, or some people last night, actually suggesting that Johann Zarco is going to accept the Reale Avintia Ducati proposal. I should add that that is nothing official at all, but it seems like things are definitely moving forward and progressing behind the scenes. It looks like for Zarco it's a toss-up, a flip of the coin. Reale Avintia Ducati in MotoGP on a GP19, which he knows is a race-winning motorcycle. We saw that with Petrucci and Dovizioso this year, or he has an offer on the table to move back to Moto2 and go in Moto2's top team, Astola Galicia Mark VDS, replace Alex Marquez and join Sam Lowe. So, yeah, some pretty big decisions to be taken very, very shortly by Johann Zarco because, of course, the MotoGP guys, they're back testing next Monday and Tuesday in Jerez. And he's going to want to, if he is moving into MotoGP or staying in MotoGP on a GP19, get as much track time on that motorcycle as he possibly can.
Speaking of the Jerez test, just in case you're wondering, that takes place next Monday and Tuesday over in Andalusia. And we will be covering it the best we can. Not live, like we've got it here from Valencia, but myself and Matt will be heading over to Dorna's HQ in Barcelona to present a little after the flag show. Amy and Simon will be over in pit lane, so we'll get some reaction from that. And maybe we'll see Johann Zarco back in action there, maybe not. Who knows? As you can see here, live footage, track temperature as cold as it has been at this time of morning over the course of the weekend, but we're hoping in the next 20-30 minutes then we're going to get some action. Just to give you a quick run through then of who's got what here. We heard yesterday from the Petronas Yamaha SRT team. They will not have any 2020 engines to test here today. They didn't yesterday either. It very much depends on the feedback of Vinales and Rossi as to whether or not Quattuaro Morbidelli then in Jerez will test that. Dovizioso and Petrucci had a little look at the 2020 bike, or components at least, yesterday. Petrucci, though, only got 10 laps in due to the injury sustained on Sunday. Suzuki, they've been testing the new 2020 engines. They've been having a little look out on that, as we saw from the footage at the start. Honda wrecked 2 2020 bikes already, so they're going to be on various hybrids here today as well, but we'll try and keep you posted and updated on who's got what and when as the day goes on. At 1 o'clock local time, Matt Dunn will be coming into the box just to ask some questions that you guys have pitched in. You can get involved on social media platforms with hashtag Valencia Test in the bottom right corner, but if you have a specific question that you want to ask myself, Matt Burt alongside me, or Simon Crayfire. On Twitter, for example, include hashtag Tech Talk, and Matt will be in for an hour at 1 o'clock just to run through that. And Neil Spalding will be joining us after lunch at 3 o'clock for an hour to tell us what he's seen, as he's been here since about 3 o'clock in the morning every morning so far.
In my little stint in pit lane yesterday afternoon, I saw Neil Spalding working overtime on his camera. He seemed very happy, Neil, so obviously lots of new technical parts for him to explain about later on this afternoon. A couple of familiar faces down the Suzuki camp, of course. The man on the right of your picture, Marco Rigamonte, former crew chief to Andrea Iannone, and Juan Manuel Casao, crew chief, of course, to Alex Rins, formerly to Maverick Vinales, who took Suzuki back to the top step of the podium at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone in 2016, former data engineer at Ducati as well. Known as Manu, of course, worked with Cal Crutchlow for his year at Ducati in 2014. Cal spoke very, very highly of Manu's capabilities as a crew chief and data engineer, so you can see why Suzuki were quite keen to get hold of his services.
Yeah, well, you've got all the big bosses here, haven't you? You can see there Ken Kawachi having a word with Shinichi Sahara there from Suzuki, and here is Emilio Alfamore on the left, and the two Marquez boys then that line up in Repsol Honda colours for 2020.
Don't worry, Mark, you weren't spoiling anybody's shot there. He was a bit worried there, wasn't he, Mark Marquez? He jumped in front of the camera. So there you go. There is your 2020 official factory Honda lineup. For the first time in history, it will be two brothers in the same factory team, Marc Marquez and Alex Marquez. No indication yet about whether, of course, we know this week Alex Marquez is working out of the LCR Honda box. He was with Taka Nakagami's crew yesterday, led by, of course, Giacomo Guidotti, the crew chief who was previously with Danny Pedrosa. There's no indication about whether Alex will be part of the official Repsol Honda setup in Jerez next week. So we'll keep a close eye on that. What was confirmed yesterday, Ramon Aurin and the entirety of Jorge Lorenzo's Repsol Honda crew are staying put. Honda did not see any reason to make backroom changes, so Alex Marquez will indeed, as we suspected, work with Jorge Lorenzo's crew chief Ramon Aurin, who knows everything there is to know, basically, about Honda. He's been there for years and years and years.
Coming into this test, Matt, there was so much expectation about what Yamaha would be bringing to the parties. We've seen Maverick Vinales bikes just being warmed up here. You spoke to Lynn Jarvis yesterday. It was pretty hard to read into what Lynn said as to whether or not there are major positives to come out of that. I mean, we all know what they're looking for. They're looking for a little bit more speed based on what we've seen recently.
Yeah, Maverick Vinales and both Valentino Rossi said yesterday it's hard to judge the improvement, certainly in terms of the engine, because this is a tight, twisty circuit. You don't really get to see your strengths in terms of top speed, so they're quite keen to wait and make a more accurate assessment about whether the engine's improved in that area when we go to Sepang and Qatar in the new year. Maverick Vinales actually was super happy. He said the bike felt fantastic. He felt fantastic. He ran the same hard spec rear tyre for much of the day that he raced here on Sunday, and he was able to do a lot of laps in the 130s, was Maverick Vinales. And he said pretty much, rather than be seriously analysing new components and new parts, he wanted to work predominantly yesterday on Yamaha's kind of age-old problem, reducing rear tyre degradation. So that was one key area, but Maverick was actually very positive. Valentino Rossi said the new Yamaha engine for him felt like it was a step in the right direction, but still a long way off their rivals. And what he means by rivals, he means Honda and Ducati have clearly got the two fastest bikes in terms of top speed in MotoGP right now. He did actually say that the engine feels a little bit better power delivery wise, throttle connection, quite easy to get the power to the ground. And the chassis, both of them reasonably happy, but Valentino made it quite clear it's not the chassis that he wants improving. He said electronics and the engine are where Yamaha need to improve. We've got a very good chassis which works brilliantly right now. So Valentino reiterating sort of thoughts and comments we've heard for quite some time now. I want better electronics and I definitely want a better engine, more speed.
So we await track action then on day 2 here in Valencia. Sounds as if Dovizioso was relatively happy with what Ducati rolled out yesterday, although it was a real shame for Danilo Petrucci not getting in many laps.
Yeah, Danilo Petrucci clearly struggling with some tendonitis in that left shoulder. Cast your minds back to recent races. He's had a couple of big crashes, hasn't he, where he's landed heavily on that left shoulder. That first lap crash at Phillip Island, where he basically body slammed into poor old Fabio Quartararo at the southern loop, and then he took a pretty heavy tumble and landed on that left shoulder here in the race on Sunday. And with that tendonitis problem that's been hanging around, it just sort of aggravated that issue for Petrucci. He said as well as the pain yesterday, it was that lack of strength that was causing him problems. He did actually go out very, very briefly on that new chassis, and of course it's far too early to draw any kind of conclusions about it because he only really did 3 laps, but he did say in that short space of time he felt like there was no negatives, it was all positive, and he did feel like there was some improvement mid-corner, which of course is everything that Ducati are looking for in terms of their new chassis, and they are looking for more horsepower as well. When we spoke to Paolo Ciabatti yesterday, clearly they're trying to extract a few more ponies out of that Desmos Adichie motor, because this year they lost their top speed advantage, didn't they, to Honda, and they're trying to regain that by finding a little bit more horsepower out of their motor.
Just saw there Aleix Espargaro sitting down, just having a chat over. Of course, we already know that Aprilia don't have any 2020 machinery to test here this weekend, these 2 days in Valencia or in Jerez early next week either. They are looking around at, there are other things obviously that they can try and improve. You would say that looking at Aprilia from outside the box, they need to improve in just about every area anyway. So what were the thoughts coming out of Aleix Espargaro's camp yesterday, Matt? Any news?
Well, he was on Sunday. I didn't hear what he said yesterday because there's not, as you say, very much to report really, because they're running pretty much the exact same bikes that they raced throughout this year. I saw some comments from Aleix actually on Sunday after the race where he was obviously asked about his thoughts on this forthcoming test in Valencia, and again some quite strong words which we've heard quite a few times this year from Aleix Espargaro about a lack of progress by Aprilia. He said, his words not mine, it's unacceptable or not acceptable for a big factory not to have their 2020 bike ready for this test. He said to have any hope of being competitive in MotoGP, you've got to be at the same level or working at the same level as your competitors. We can see a batch of new parts on every other motorcycle on the grid. So Aprilia are quite clearly behind the game. And he said, and this is a very valid point, if you're not here or in Jerez next week with your 2020 bike, you're only going to have Sepang and Qatar next year, and that is just 6 days to find out whether you've got this bike nailed on. You know, everybody else is having 10 days to work on their 2020 bikes. Aprilia are really reducing their track time. So a couple of valid points made by Aleix Espargaro, I thought, on the Aprilia's current situation.
New devices as ever on the Ducati machine. GG getting out his box of tricks, including a new and larger salad box on the rear of Michele Pirro's bike. Simon?
Oh, no, nothing, guys. I was just letting you know if it was Pirro's bike because I saw the camera wasn't looking at the number till later. No problem. Hey, guys, I just wanted to throw in about Valentino, listening to his debrief. What I did take that he felt that, I mean, he actually said that Yamaha were working in the right direction. There was less confusion. He was pretty happy about that. What else? Oh yeah, chassis-wise, when asked about the new chassis, what are the differences? He says, well, it's not a big difference, it's very similar, but the area they're working on is from upright, you know, with the change of direction to be a little bit more accurate when you tip in, and braking stability. They're the two areas, you know, hard on the brakes going in all the way to the, you know, when you're well into the corner till brake release. He said that's the area that they were working on. Guys, speaking about Mark, the highlight of all the debriefs yesterday for me, I literally laughed out loud, was, you know, that mentality brothers have, you know, or friends when you're young, if someone falls over and lands on their face, if you know they're all right, you know, you laugh your head off at them, you know, it's that young, you know, kids mentality. Mark, when asked about his brother falling early on, and he goes, yeah, it was just too early, too cold to get out there. And then he said, He doesn't know about the Michelins. You know, it was so funny. He was laughing, like that same mentality. His brother's fallen on his face. He knows he's all right. And to be fair, it's not the brand, it's not Michelin, it's MotoGP tyres he didn't know about, you know, because they've always been the same. They have to be strong enough to handle all that power, all that braking. So when they're out on the cold, it's just really difficult to manage them. So it's always been the same when it was brands before. But yeah, it was, to me, absolutely brilliant, that kid's cartoon mentality, laughing at his brother falling on his face.
Thanks for that, Simon. Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose the good news, of course, out of that was the fact that Alex got up and was okay. You could see almost the embarrassment, couldn't you, in the body language from Alex after that fall at turn 10.
Yeah, he was frustrated with himself, wasn't he? Good news there. We just saw Fabio Quartararo at a fairly rapid rate, going back to the truck on his scooter. So it doesn't look like there's too many lingering after effects of that big crash he had at turn 10 yesterday. I think the most serious damage was just he got a bit of a jab in the ribs from his own elbow, which sounded quite uncomfortable. But the good news was Fabio was okay, and he did go back out, of course, as well, and set a pretty fast pace. So good to see him doing that.
Yeah, great to see Fabio will be going back out. He just loves riding his bike, doesn't he? That's the thing with Fabio Quartararo. That's what we love about the French rookie, although we're going to have to stop calling the French rookie now because that season's done and dusted. He is the real deal. He is just Fabio Quartararo.
Yeah, and what a difference a year makes. The end of day one in Valencia 2018, he was 20th on the timesheets as a fresh, raw rookie. And here he is 1 year ago after a brilliant, brilliant season. Top of the timesheet thanks to that 1:30, 1:63. 10 laps Fabio did in the 1:30s yesterday.
One Valentino Rossi fan looking out for his hero. The 40-year-old will be rolling out at some point. Of course, when we start next year, it will be the 41-year-old. Here comes Cal Crutchlow. No leathers on for him just yet, but he makes his way into the garage. Cal, of course, was injured this time last year, so was not able to test before the start of 2019. One of the, well, the only rider that didn't crash any 2020 material yesterday.
Yeah, it's always a difficult transition when you get a brand new bike, as Cal pointed out yesterday. You can't just run the same setup, you can't just use the same sort of electronics controls because it's a completely different motorcycle that behaves in a different way. So you've got to actually spend a lot of time initially just dialing in the electronics. That's why Stefan Brada was the first man out on circuit yesterday, while they just got him to run some electronics. And Cal said actually his main concern with the 2020 Honda is to get him a bit better feeling on corner entry, certainly in terms of deceleration. Simon, you've got some observations about electronics?
Yeah, yesterday I got sidetracked right at the end when I was with Steve. Got distracted is the word, right at the end when I didn't finish off about the electronics. And while it's so quiet, I just thought I'd just talk through what I'd learnt about one cool point this year about the electronics. I'll start from the beginning, how the bike knows where it is from corner to corner, and the teams can adjust both traction control and engine braking per corner. But the thing that I didn't mention yesterday when I got sidetracked, something jumped out in front of me, it was that they're also adjustable per corner but per lean angle. So the lean angle sensor tells it, you know, the computer controlling at what angle the bike is, and so you can set torque parameters per lean angle, and per corner, which is mind-blowing. Can you imagine the amount of information it's processing all the way around there? So if you shut the throttle and go into the corner at a certain angle, it's got so much engine brake, and as you lean over, they can either reduce or increase the engine brake, you know, and the rider has to do nothing per corner. It's stunning. The same on exit.
Thanks for that, Simon. We're just looking at some replays from yesterday then. Here is Fabio Quartararo. This was just before, of course, he crashed over at turn number 10. He was getting a little bit out of shape on the way in. And then just as he starts to change direction, trying to almost overcompensate a little bit, and the front end says, no thanks. I'm not interested in that. He was up at that point. You could see already, though, Matt, down there as well. If you're offline, there's a few spots of gravel on circuit as well.
Yeah, like you guys said in commentary yesterday, the bike was never settled at all, was it, coming through turn number 9, the left-hander. And he's gone for a couple of heavy barrel rolls through the gravel trap there as well. Did Fabio Quartararo, so quite fortunate to get away with that one. There was a brief look at Marc Marquez. Here's Aprilia's test rider, Bradley Smith. He was also caught out in those cool conditions yesterday morning. He was down at turn 9. Pretty heavy crash for him, but he was perfectly okay, thankfully. Staying with the Aprilia test team next year, hoping for a few more wild cards. Of course, he was actually scheduled, Bradley Smith, to be a wild card here in Valencia this weekend, but that was all cancelled because of the rescheduled FIM Enel Moto E World Cup races, which he was obviously part of, and you are not allowed to participate in both events over the course of the same weekend.
Yeah, saying yesterday, of course, that he's keen to do the same again, isn't he, to race in Moto E for 2020. Sticking with the British theme just for a moment, I know that whilst there's a lot of viewers watching from around the world on MotoGP.com on the video pass, I believe there are a few people watching back home in the UK, and I'll send my very best regards. I'm sure you will do the same, Matt, to Neil Hodgson, whose birthday it is today. I believe he's joined your 46 club.
Yes, apparently so. Yeah, many happy returns to Neil. Somebody quite close to home's birthday as well, isn't it today, mate?
Yeah, well, I suppose I better give the nod, hadn't I? Really, now you've lined me up for that one. Yes, a very happy birthday to my wife, Linny, who I very much doubt is watching this. And I would not blame her if she's not either, but yes, be home soon, darling.
So Bradley Smith then, putting the Aprilia through its paces. This was a replay from yesterday. Did crash at turn number 9, as we said, did Bradley. Best lap time of him on the opening day was a 1:32.090. Put in a decent shift, 50 laps. Of course, it was disrupted by that crash into turn number 9.
Yeah, one of the last out on circuit, wasn't he? Bradley Smith, going through the motions, trying to find something positive to give to Aleix Espargaro and Andrea Iannone. You wonder, don't you, Matt, when it comes to the Valencia test, I mean, after all of the experiences that we've had in the past, why they even opened the track for 10 o'clock, because I can't remember a single year where day 2 of testing there's been anyone that's gone out within half an hour.
Interesting attachment on the rear of the Aprilia there. I'm sure if we can get Simon to have a little wander down there to find out what's going on where Bradley Smith is standing, but obviously we saw some data recording attachments on the swing arm of Michele Piro's bike yesterday. Hard to tell from there exactly what's going on with the Aprilia outfit. Still a few brave fans have come out early for this second day of testing here in Valencia. It is very cold, don't let your eyes deceive you. It's another beautiful, gorgeous, sunny autumnal day here in Valencia, but very, very cool, very, very chilly. Ducati were busy yesterday, working on new frames, Andrea Dovizioso. A very positive reception in many respects. Here is Desmo Dovi, getting a good look at that brand new frame that Gigi Dall'Igna has been working on, of course, desperate. The main area, the main weakness, it's been the case for many, many years for Ducati. It's that understeer, mid-corner turning. When you're off brake, the bike just has a tendency to run wide. They're not certainly as good in mid-corner speed as the factory Hondas and factory Yamahas. Well, we just saw Bradley Smith biding his time, waiting for the track conditions to improve. I'm delighted to say, as he did yesterday morning, he's stopped by and had a little chat with our man Simon Crafar in pit lane. Over to you, Simon.
Sure, Brad, thanks for stopping, chatting with us. Can you give us a bit of an update on how the day went yesterday and what you have planned today. And also, it looks like you're going to have a trailer on today because you've got a tow bar on your bike.
Yeah, so yesterday didn't start so great. Lap 4 ended up high-siding myself at turn 9. It's been a situation that we continually have. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a certain slide with these bikes that the TC just doesn't understand that's happening. And you look at all the parameters and everything looks okay, but the rider ends up like flying off the bike. So still working on that one clearly. After that, it was pretty good. Got up to speed fairly quickly. My job yesterday was just to back check a couple of different chassis options. I've got 2 different chassis options also today to just make a decision on. As you said, we have our trailer on today, just gathering more information and more data in terms of loads and positions and where the bike is on the racetrack. The more circuits that we can get that information from, the more that we start to understand our package and the tyres and so on and so forth. So yeah, information gathering. As I said yesterday, we don't have a 2020 package here, so we're still trying to get all the information we can from this year, so that the engineers have all the best knowledge for that final package that will be rolling out in February.
Speaking of tyres, did you get to try the new tyre as well, or is that only for the guys that have to race next year to help choose?
Yeah, fortunately for the rear tyre, I've had it on my allocation the last couple of tests, so I managed to put a race distance on it in Aragon after the GP that I did a test there, and I have 3 pieces here also today. We also have a front tyre that Michelin's requested that we get some laps on as well. I don't think that's actually planned for a 2020 tyre, it's more for 2021, but the rear tyre definitely is a step forward.
Can you give us an idea what is better about them, front and rear, if they are better?
For me, from the rear tyre, it just helps our bike with more grip. If you have a look back to Phillip Island when it was that extra 20-minute session, Andre Iannone was P2. He was going very well anyway, Phillip Island in general, but he was P2 with that tyre. So we're quite optimistic within our team. Our weakness is kind of that drive grip, so if a tyre can help us in that direction, but if it helps us, it helps everybody. And yeah, we definitely saw some grip performance there, and it helps with the weakness parts of our bike. From the front side, no information at the moment, so I have to go out there and let you know later.
Brad, I hope you don't mind me keeping you a little bit longer. One other thing I'd like to know is, from the outside, we all have a fantastic job, and I agree, we do, but it's a long season, and you and I both know how much pressure there is on riders at races, how many races there is. Now it's getting longer, especially if you've got a little niggling injury or a ligament, like a repetitive strain thing, how you never get time for it to recover, and it's going to get more races and more the year after. I'm personally, there's nothing to do with me, not my decision, but personally a little bit worried about physical and even mental health of riders with this amount of pressure in races.
Certainly a long season, and especially even more so with teams like Aprilia and teams like KTM that still have the dispensation, so their guys can test kind of unlimited everywhere that they want. So that means not only are they doing the 20 race series, they're also doing all of the official tests, plus the private tests, plus the shakedown tests, plus any PR commitments. I certainly had a little bit of a chat with Brad Binder, looking over his calendar. We share the same manager, so it was just over coffee, and looking at his calendar and what's expected, it blows his mind already, in terms of the extra things. And it's not only that, it's also stepping up from Moto2 to MotoGP in terms of commitments throughout the day, mechanics, engineers that need your time, meetings that take sometimes 45 minutes to 1 hour, going through all the intricate details. It's a lot of stress, but it's what we wanted to do, it's what we love, and in the end, you just have to suck it up, princess, and get on with it.
Hey, you tell me if you've got to walk away, just say got to go. But we spoke, day before yesterday, you and I, about the difference in commitment coming from Moto2 to MotoGP, and what, you know, Brad Binder and Ika Lecuona have got to go through, you know, starting from now. And you know, I see it, you've been through it more recently, and how, you know, Moto 2 and 3 riders always have 5 minutes to have a chat, or even if it's 2 minutes, they're always polite, always, you know, make eye contact, hi, where you see after a little while of them being in MotoGP and they start to glaze over, don't see you, keep marching forward, and I know why, and I don't blame them at all, it's survival, but you've done it more recently. Give us an idea what that's like, that move.
Yeah, your time is no longer your own, and if you can have an extra 5-10 minutes to yourself just to, you know, even close your eyes, a little bit of peace of mind, a little bit of that, just that stillness, a bit of quietness, because this world's noisy, and I'm not only talking about the bikes, I'm just talking about there's so many questions, so much thinking. You imagine the options that you have on these MotoGP bikes in terms of things that you can change, 3 tyre choices, front and rear, you know, different torque maps, different traction control, different engine, different setting, trying to give the engineers maybe that bit more of an idea, looking at sectors, looking at video, self-analysis, self-criticism, you know, all of that goes on, and you're supposed to also go out there every 45 minutes and perform to the best of you can with no mistakes, and if you can find 0.1, 0.2, then that would be fantastic, right? So all of that is extra pressure, it all sits on your shoulders. That's why we see when guys are going, wow, that confidence, it's almost a bit more free. This is why we see a lot of teams and a lot of riders keep their team, because they feel confident and they almost pass the stress on to them. They have that belief that the crew chief is going to do what he needs to do. The engineers understand his problems, understand how to make it better, and you almost shift a lot of that weight. When you're coming into a new team, that obviously takes a bit more time. It takes a good, I would say, 6 to 8 months for everything to gel and for everyone to really understand what you want. So you spend a bit more time with those people, and do you understand what I mean? And you kind of go over things a little bit more. But yeah, that's why rookie season is so difficult. That's why it's so impressive what someone like Miguel did this year. Amazing what Fabio Quartararo did this year, and amazing what Ika Lecuona has done in his first race. So somehow these young guys are taking it in their stride. They're just glazing through it. But it's not easy. They're definitely making it look a lot easier than it really is.
And when you do walk around the paddock and you're already got so much on your mind, you're already got no time, you need that 10 minutes to sit down, and then people are pulling on your shirt to come over here and answer the same question you've answered about 30 times that day, and at the end, I imagine it's you've got a priority.
Yeah, exactly, and sometimes you're just looking to go to the toilet, you know, that's all that you want to do. You've been sat in a meeting bursting for a wee for 20 minutes, and some guy wants to ask you this question, or, you know, fans obviously for photographs. So, you know, I understand everyone, you know, is trying to get to a place to be. I mean, it sounds silly, but MotoGP riders ended up weeing in bottles, you know, just so you don't have to go to the toilet, so you don't lose those 10 minutes. And I know it sounds disgusting, but everyone will say that that is what happens, and everyone will agree with me. But it's just to save those extra little 5 to 10 minutes, just so, you know, like I said, you can lay there with your music on, just chill out for those extra little bits, and focus on the job at hand, which is riding these 270 horsepower motorcycles around places like this.
Brad, you're a star. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, always welcome.
Thanks very much to Brad Smith. Thanks to Simon Crafar there as well. Yes, I mean, I suppose, Matt, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, isn't it? When you're a MotoGP rider, I mean, it is something that you dream of. You know, you want to race, you want to get to the highest level. Unfortunately, the bits that you want to do are actually minimal.
Yeah, so much demands on your time now, not just from your team, of course, and being out on the circuit, and then the lengthy times that you have to spend with the crew debriefing. There's so many sponsor obligations, media obligations. The job of a rider now is 24/7. Speaking of those bottles, Cal Crutchlow is guilty of that. If you're ever on a flyaway and you go into Cal Crutchlow's office, you have to be careful.
Don't touch the
what
apple
you're
juice.
picking up to be drinking, yeah, because you might get a rather nasty shock.
Guys, he wasn't kidding. I don't know a rider that doesn't do that, because you don't want to go out and try to get through the public to the toilets, you know, and a lot of the garages don't have toilets in. The ones that do, it's why you really appreciate it. You don't have to leave the garage to, you know, between kind of meetings with the team. So yeah, it's kind of a necessity.
Well, I think we have to be quite honest. There are a couple of circuits around the world where there aren't toilets near commentary boxes, and we've seen a few of those bottles kicking around before.
Yeah, one guy who knows how the demands on a rider have changed over the generations is, of course, Valentino Rossi.
Yeah.
And he spoke about this quite recently. You know, he said now, long gone the days where the rider would have a short debrief and then go back to motorhome and just chill out and cruise around the paddock. You know, he says a rider can spend as much as 2 or 3 hours just poring over data with his electronics engineers. Was it, I think, Malaysia? Well, there was a very recent race, may have even been Motegi. I mean, you'd not have seen this at any time years ago. Valentino Rossi, about 20 minutes before the race, he was still looking at data, still trying to make sure that, you know, he was armed with all the information. It was incredible. I mean, the riders now, the level is so high in terms of talent, the level is so high in terms of technology. You've got to spend that time in the garage, because if not, you're never going to beat a rider like Marc Marquez. It's what you don't see is the work that these guys are putting in. Simon, you've got some additional observations on this subject. Go for it.
Yeah, at the end of my career was kind of the real beginning of all the data recording. You know, we didn't have electronics on there, but there was a lot of data that you could analyze, you know, to see what gear was optimum, what suspension, where they were running into, through and out of the turns. You know, there was enough to keep you busy, and so I did get to experiment with that, you know, spending time. I had a teammate, Akira Yanagawa, who spent a lot of time